Hello, AP students. We're going to fill in a little bit of info on this sheet right here after doing a quick little review of some stuff we learned yesterday. So we first saw the difference between marine and freshwater biomes. Marine means saltwater, freshwater being the kind of water where we live. And we also learned that a lot of our drinking water comes from that freshwater supply, lakes, ponds, and streams. The open oceans, a little surprisingly, provide much of our oxygen for the air because algae and other little single-celled creatures that are able to do photosynthesis, like plants on land, but in the sea, they make oxygen when they are doing photosynthesis, just like plants on land. And it provides a lot of oxygen that is created in the ocean, and then it diffuses its way into our atmosphere. There's a lot of dead material in the ocean, detritus, basically floaties everywhere that they do a great job of showing in the Aquaman movies. We saw a couple different biomes, coral reefs with the little coral animals. Saw that as the Earth spins through zones in which the moon is pulling water toward itself on Earth, the Earth's rotation takes you through zones that are at high tide and low tide, and it creates some biomes that have to deal with the fact that near the shorelines, the water is going up and down every day. These are the marshes, or saltwater marshes. So we saw some videos of those and did a little sorting activity yesterday. So now we are going to pick up on our sheet that you have in front of you with freshwater biomes, and we're going to check this out. This is a very common thing in Michigan rivers and lakes where there's some kind of producer that can do photosynthesis at the bottom of the food web. It says algae on the picture on the right, and there's a new word we're going to use on the picture on the left, phytoplankton. It's just kind of a general word for any little microscopic organism that can do photosynthesis. So algae would count as phytoplankton. I always remember what it is because phyto kind of sounds like photo to me, and photosynthesis, green things doing photosynthesis and making sugar and making oxygen. So anyways, these little phytoplankton are then eaten by other tiny microscopic single-celled creatures. They're called zooplankton. Well, zoo, kind of like animals at the zoo. Animals eat plants. Similarly, zooplankton eat phytoplankton that do photosynthesis. Only they're single-celled creatures in the water. In this picture over here, there are some algae, and they're going to be consumed by larger creatures. I guess zooplankton isn't on this picture here, but it's the same basic flow. So freshwater biomes. Every freshwater biome includes the producers, like algae, and it includes a little single-celled algae called phytoplankton. That's at the bottom of the food web. It's where the sunlight comes and it begins the journey of energy through our ecosystem. And the first consumers to eat that, first thing to eat the little phytoplankton that have done photosynthesis, are other single-celled creatures called zooplankton. So it's very similar to on land. You have plants getting the energy from the sun first, and then animals eating those plants. Only in the sea, or lakes, any kind of body of water, the bottom of that food web is phytoplankton. Little single-celled life that does photosynthesis, and then it's first eaten by zooplankton, animal-like single-celled creatures floating in the water. And this is in streams, rivers, lakes, and ponds all around us, freshwater. Marine biomes, they're kind of starting the same way. They have producers at the bottom, including the little single-celled algae called phytoplankton. They're green, they're single-celled, they're little, and then the next thing in the path of energy as it goes from the sun to the phytoplankton, then comes the zooplankton. Again, this is much like on land. Plants get the sun's energy first, then animals, kind of like at the zoo, eat them next, only it's phytoplankton, single-celled, doing the photosynthesis in the sea, and then zooplankton eating them. In this picture, you can see out even in the open ocean, this is happening. Little green phytoplankton getting the sun's energy. Their energy follows this arrow over here to zooplankton. And then there are even some tiny shrimp-like creatures that can directly eat those phytoplankton too. The energy just keeps going on and on and on to other creatures all the way up to these animals at the top of the food web. So, what would an open ocean be? Just any massive area full of salt water. And the animals can be, well, see the previous picture. What you could write there are, well, you wouldn't write phytoplankton for animals because that's not an animal, but you could put whales and seals, penguins, fish, anything you want to write there that would remind you of an open ocean. Coral reefs, we saw a little info about this yesterday. Again, the little green photosynthesizing single-celled creatures, in this case near the shore, phytoplankton, are going to get eaten by other tiny creatures that are kind of like, in a way, animals. So they're zooplankton. And those then feed energy into a bunch of different living things, one of them being these little coral polyps that are stationary. They don't move anywhere, but they have little tiny tentacle-like things that they can wave and basically knock these little zooplankton into their mouths and stomachs. They grow very slowly. They ooze calcium carbonate out beneath them. The calcium carbonate is the same thing that we find in bones. So wherever there are ancient oceans, there's old dead fish bones, there's old dead coral reef material, calcium carbonate piling up, and they use that to make cement and chalk and Tums for an upset stomach. But it's a coral reef because all these things live on a reef that's basically getting bigger and bigger and bigger as these coral polyps ooze calcium carbonate out beneath them. So near the ocean, saltwater shore, ecosystem exists where there are the built-up remains, the calcium carbonate of these coral polyps. The animals can be, well, anything in the previous picture, but you gotta write down, for sure, coral, because it literally gives the name to the reef. You can mention any of these others that you like, some that you would see in Finding Nemo. When we went for a field trip to Hawaii, we got to go snorkeling on a coral reef and saw a ton of these things. It was pretty cool. Another marine or ocean saltwater biome comes near the shore. It's called marshland, or often called saltwater marshland because it's ocean water. This picture on the left doesn't look like it's out in the ocean. What it really is a big grassy area along a coastline in which the water is going up and down throughout the day as the tides make water go up and down. The big distinctive thing in this area, this would be in a more temperate kind of climate, say our east coast of the United States, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia. There's grass that does a great job. It's a kind of seagrass that does a great job living in this bizarre place where you gotta have salt water coming up over a portion of your plant for part of the day, and then for another part of the day the water will go down at low tide, and now the plant and its roots are even exposed to just dry air. So that's quite a sturdy plant that can handle such a thing, a real hardy plant, and that is a type of grass. So this is a saltwater marshland that's kind of grassy, and that's more in our medium temperate biome. If you go further south, deep south into Florida, or even further south in the tropical areas, grass isn't the best plant anymore for dealing with the salt water going up and down. There's another kind of cool plant called a mangrove, and it is totally capable of having these root-like stalk parts of the plant, sometimes exposed to air, sometimes exposed to salt water. And so that's a mangrove forest generally near the shoreline. Some giveaways that this isn't just some inland thing here is Birds that are always found near the ocean, crabs. Similar thing going on over here. Crabs and such give the impression that while they're not showing any ocean in these pictures, they're definitely at the edge of the ocean. So a marshland, saltwater environment, it's a transition from ocean to land biomes. It often includes grasses or mangroves. Grasses in more temperate climate marshlands and mangroves in the more tropical ones. If you go to Hawaii or Florida, you can find mangroves. If you go to the Carolinas, you can find grasses along the shoreline. The animals you can find, well, anything you want to write down from the previous picture here that would give away the idea that you're right at a shoreline. You're not going to find whales there. You're not going to find coral there. You're going to find some of these other creatures there. There's yet another biome that counts kind of as a marine biome, but it's almost a mix between marine and freshwater, and that is where freshwater is meeting the ocean. This picture shows a seal, which apparently has gone upriver from the ocean. And salmon, they like to go from spending time in the ocean to swimming up a freshwater river to spawn and make more salmon. So this picture is interesting. It looks like it's just of a river, but it's got all these ocean creatures in it too, giving away the fact that it's an estuary, a place where an ocean and a river meet each other. It's a bizarre zone where the saltiness of the water, where the fresh water is dumping into the ocean water, is kind of a medium saltiness. Estuaries, where a river empties into an ocean, and the animals you can put there tend to be kind of a mixture of river animals and ocean animals. And that's all we're going to do for today. You can ignore that slide. We'll do that tomorrow or the next day in class. Have a good day.